so what we're going to do is we're gonna establish an area that we want you guys working in, and then as a group you can decide on the specific area within that. And what I would do is look for the areas where you may actually want to build a pond or do terraces based on the shapes of the areas that we're going to be working in up at the lab. And then you're going to go ahead and pretty quickly kind of decide what you want to do with that area. And you can even decide as you're going through. This is a time for making all of the mistakes. I don't want you guys to overthink. No analysis paralysis, no fear of failure. Just move right into creating the things. I'll be walking around and answering questions, but I want you guys to make all of the mistakes ideally, because then what we're going to do at the end is we're going to simulate a 100-year rainfall event, and we're going to see, okay, that dam blew because of this reason. This area didn't hold the water because of this reason. These terraces did this, and we can start to see all the different things that happen. And so as far as goals of the client and climate context, we're just going to say we're working in this climate, so a place that gets very little moisture in the summer, pretty good moisture throughout the winter and the spring. We've got the client goals of, I know Paul didn't want to become the client, but we're just going to say he wants a lot of different creative renditions of how to properly manage and create a water landscape. And so I want you guys working on the different techniques. If you want to make some swales, if you want to make some ponds, if you want to make some terraces, some hugelkultures, it's really the time to experiment, to be feeling the soil for yourself. Get a good idea of, okay, is this clay too wet or is this clay too dry? What might we need to do? What makes it maybe seal versus not? And so then I really want you guys to just go through, make the models. I'm going to be coyote teaching. So I'm going to answer every question with a question. So don't ask me any stupid questions or you're not going to get the response that you want. I want you guys really, the whole point of this exercise is to get you guys thinking for yourselves. Not just saying, okay, well, we're going to make this terrace because this is what he said. And then we're going to make this pond here because this is what he said. Think for yourself. Look at the material. Look at the place you're working. And try and come up with something that you want to see whether it works or not. Work on whatever scale you want to, but think about the materials you're working with. So if you're working on a really small scale, you might want to get some clay and bring it in, or think about and feel the materials. And if you think when you're doing a hand texturing, the more it clumps up together, the more clay you have, you can feel the sand as the grit in between, and then the smooth material that doesn't bind is going to be silt. So as you're moving the material around, get a good feel for how much sand you think is in it, how much clay you think is in it, things like that. And so, the more you guys can be experimenting, and then we'll just be floating around, answering questions with questions, hopefully to confuse you guys even more. And then at the end, when we do the water test, is when we'll do a more formal, westernized, okay, this is this because of this kind of thing. Yeah, our goals in context are we're working with the climate here, so you're going to have a long summer dry season. You're going to have pretty good seasonal moisture coming through in the winter and in the spring. So then our goals of the client, Paul wants a lot of different artisans in seed and soil. He wants people producing their own food out here. He wants people restoring the watershed. So those are the goals you're trying to accomplish in these little test earthworks. Maximize water retention, get some good areas for cultivation of perennials and annuals, and make something that's beautiful and creative.
Or scale?
Roughly, yeah. But don't be worried about screwing up. This is now is for all the mistakes. You want to make all the mistakes in the model so that when it comes time to do something on the real landscape, you've ironed out all the mistakes. You've made them in a small area like this where the dam sliding downhill doesn't mean that you have a neighbor suing you. It just means that your model didn't work as you planned.
Do you want them on the flat or work on some of these slopes?
Wherever you guys want to choose. So me personally, I would be looking for areas kind of like at the bottom of a slope, the key points, but do whatever you want, where you want. So maybe talk with your group for no more than 5 minutes right now, figure out what you're looking for in a site, go and stake your claim, and keep in mind the first people staking their claim are going to get the best spots. So move to that part pretty quickly. Exactly.
So can you repeat what you said, because I wasn't listening? Oh, we're discussing a lot. Okay. At what level are we going to
allow that. So if it is that we say that all of this is a natural formation, then let's go ahead and allow it to fill up, and let's concentrate over here. Yeah, so basically what the students are doing now is they're forming up miniature dioramas, like little miniature landscapes, to show their understanding of water harvesting and the way water interacts with the landscape. We're going to simulate basically a once in 100-year flood event, and we're going to watch the systems actually run, collect water, divert that energy, spread it out, soak it, do all the things that they've been learning over the last few days. So it's a bit of a competition, and some have gone to go very broad scale, which means that they're going to have a hell of a lot of water to get these systems run. And I've been trying to encourage some to actually reduce the size of the system so that they can actually get a nice small system that's easy to run and demonstrate a few different possibilities. But there's some that they're going to be running backwards and forwards from the dam just to get them to even fill. This team, they're building a nice little dam. They're actually plastering it and capping it. They're being very precise about it so that it will hold water. And they're building some catchments further up. They're going to get the water to come around and down into there. And we'll be looking for things like how are you going to handle the silt loads in the that are coming downstream. So I've dropped hints but haven't directly said what are you going to do about capturing the silt or the runoff, because we don't want to fill the main dam. So they've just got to show that they've kind of internalised a little bit of it, and this is a good way of sort of cementing it. So, and it's good fun to play in the dirt as an adult. It's very therapeutic.
So if you want to go ahead and explain, first give us an idea of just the area you're working with, and then explain what you guys did.
So for scale, this is the house, so that's the size of the scale. So we're looking at this is it's been clear cut, the hillside, so the area above it is the catchment. So the considerations was the amount of rain that you would catch, and so our main feature is our pond, which is still holding water, that is the water supply for the house, and is pretty. So we need to make sure that our spillway heading out that direction could evacuate the water quick enough on a big water event. We have a couple features uphill of that. This one over here is slightly off, not on contour. It directs some water out that way to help not overwhelm this kind of natural channel that existed, but it also just slows down water so it filters through the landscape. This one over here just kind of slows water down. On a big event, it'll flow all the way through and connect in. Otherwise, it just kind of seeps in, and there's various stages coming down, so they act as kind of silt traps, as well as that right there for that, I guess that's part of the float stage. Then we've got our little waterfall over rocks coming down. So between the silt traps and the waterfall, it's helping to aerate the water and clean the water, so we get a nice, as you can see how pretty the water supply is. Then we've got kind of a flattened terrace out behind the house. This is another flattened terrace that periodically in a major event we'll get some flooding onto it just to add nutrients, things like that, but just depends on the size of the event whether or not it gets water. And then so we'll spill out and head that way, and again it's just kind of slowing the water down. That one doesn't hold water, it just kind of slows it down and seeps it in just to help the landscape, even though we're not really working with that side of the hill, but it helps out the people down below.
Very nice. Let's see what happens.
Zach, how many of these cans are we going to do? Do we need to jug them up right away again?
We probably will fill them right up.
When you think about the rainfall for a little house, Yeah. We have a very resilient design, so have at it.
Nice. Yeah, we'll just go until something interesting happens.
Why is it empty? How did it get empty?
I'm interested in those big rocks right above
It's Farmageddon.
See? It's holding up. All right, well done.
There's a little bit of landslide happening below the dam to get saturated.
But that was a good dam, though.
Yeah. So what did you guys notice? How did it work compared to what you thought?
Look at all the silt in
Did everything work as planned? Were there things that didn't?
Overwhelmed our silt trap.
It's like
Your pond isn't as deep.
It'll go, it'll fill it.
Oh, nice.
Well, now the dry season has arrived after the 1,000 years.
We're gonna take that silt and go work on our terrace.
Yep.
By design.
Yeah, this is exactly what we had in mind. So, perfect.
So one thing that I noticed, you know, you really wanted, the steeper the landscape is, the more of a sediment trap you're going to need. And the more abused, the more of a sediment trap you're going to need. So your guys' ones along the way definitely caught some, but that steep waterfall, you know, really just filled the whole pond. Which is, you know, those waterfall spillway areas, those are the hardest areas to build. Hands down, by far and away, because you're working with a powerful force water. It's going to carry things all over the place. So that's really, whenever you're doing those, you know, when I'm doing a project like that one you guys saw in Tennessee, half of that project was spillway building. You know, we built the big dam, we built the other small pond, we did home sites, we did roads, and still half of the project was spillway building. So that's a really key component. You know, in this one you saw, because of the grades and because of the rocks, and granted, you know, you're not going to be able to do things perfect in a scale like this, but you can see specifically you had nice big rocks that all stayed in place. I think one washed into the pond there, but it was mostly that fine silt and sediment that's what washed into the pond. So that's where stacking that material size. That's not something you could do right now, but important when you're building a real spillway. You know, you have big rocks, then you have smaller rocks, then you have fist-sized rocks, then you have gravel, then you might even mix some sand to get that aggregate stacking that's going to make something that's really strong and keep back everything below it. The other thing I noticed was this terrace was, because it was directing this way, it was washing a little bit into the house, not much, and with a really crazy rainstorm, but that's something where I would direct that spillway a little bit more.
And what do you think about the grade? Like the steeper the grade, the more you've got to keep stuff close to contour, step.
Yeah, yep.
Because it just gets energy.
Yeah. And you guys picked probably the toughest site of anyone because it's so steep.
We got extra points for this.
Yeah. So considering there were no major landslides or breaches, this was a success. This was very nice.
We might have a beat.
Nice work. So where's your guys' project? Is all on the hillside, right?
Ours is the hillside.
So everyone, let's shuttle into this area here, and everyone can watch from there.
Our property ended up being in the middle of the mountain, and there was a major avalanche that happened and cleared everything off, so we had to start from scratch. So we decided to put in some ponds up in this area with spillways, and
Lane, left foot.
oh, it's okay. That's just functionality. So this is the county road that runs along. And because of the existing waterfall that happened, this is the bridge for the county road.
Nice.
That spills into the inland sea.
Points for creativity.
So we have some water spillways coming down here. We have some sediment catch points, and then more. We put up a dam in this area, a block dam in this area to divert water from filling up this area, because we were already having water running down here and we didn't want to oversaturate this. We also sloped this away slightly to come down here because we weren't legally allowed to divert water away from the waterfall. Some political issues. And then more spillways for waterfalls, and we have some hugel mounds going on the edge here, and a possible future site for a building running down, feeding back into the existing water supply.
Nice. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see.
It will be funny.
We're gonna rain hard and hard.
Bit hard because it's small.
Is there? Isn't it supposed to end up down
make
there?
it
anyway?
challenging.
I mean,
Yeah, we're gonna need multiple cans for this one, Fred.
yeah.
Oh, there go the trees.
If only they could put down better roots.
Where's the access road for the hula?
That's a lawsuit.
But fortunately, it's still on property. County road yet.
So what did you guys see? Tell me what you saw.
I see a weak spot on our diverting back into the river. We've lost our water down into the county road, so we could be shoring up that area. We had a real weak spot in our earthworks up here, so we had a landslide. Yes, we had the landslide, but it stayed on the land, and I don't on our land, so we're not dealing with any legal issues.
I think our trees are
Can I sneak through here?
Isn't this your second attempt?
No, this is our first attempt. Okay. We're gonna buy it and leave.
That other LLC was disbanded.
Come back in 10 years. We're gonna come back in 10 years with the adjacent property.
Well, let's see. We're gonna do it softly, but let's see if it all flows how you want it to.
Come on, Mo. Come on.
Yeah, that's the snow cap melting.
Come on.
Oh, county road. Oh, dear.
So your former landslide is helping you this year.
Yeah.
So this really nice job, guys.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Very elaborate and cool.
This brings up a couple of really important points. One is your angle of repose in between terraces. So in a lot of soil types, 45 degrees is 1-to-1 is as steep as you want to get. Certain ones you can get a little bit steeper, certain ones you need to be flatter than that. So you've got lots of areas in here. Granted, you're working with a very steep spot, but you've got lots of areas a lot past that. And so that was kind of the little landslides that we're seeing.
Hey, it collapsed at last.
Oh,
After hours, it's all good. Everybody had gone home.
Water's still flowing.
and then an important part to think about is also the angle and the degree of your spillways. And so as you saw, eventually you had a nice clay layer under those rocks, but eventually it eroded that away, and then you have nothing supporting those rocks. Then you start to get into bigger issues, and eventually your lawsuit here down on the county road. So that's really important to consider. And if you can, so if you're gonna have steep sections of spillway, because you need them, it's best to avoid them. But if you're gonna have steep sections, first off, you want them farther away from the pond. So something in this case that could have helped is if you first brought it out here and then dropped it. And then if this erodes, it's not actually eating away your pond and causing further issues. And then the other thing is being really diligent about how you build the spillway, and you gotta go from the bottom up when you're doing like that. So each rock is springing out and is pulling the water out, not drilling behind, because as you saw with here, once it starts eating behind, it eats under the rocks, and then you get bigger issues. So that was a really good demonstration of that. And also trying to keep, the biggest thing that I saw here was just the areas that are really steep spillways are the areas where it started eating away. Whether it was the spillway of this pond, the spillway of that pond, the spillway of that pond, and the spillways being right against the edges of the dam makes for a big challenge. And so you can see, because of that sediment moving, I'm gonna step on your house site because it's nice and sturdy. This pond entirely silted up with sediment, but this one did not, because you did a nice job of managing all of this. But once all of this sediment was lifted, filled in that one, and it filled in that one. So these steep properties, it's a tough place to work on, because you can see how limited your options are. But so those are the big things I saw here. Let's we'll have Priscilla talk us through it first, and then we'll get to the action.
So what I did was I filled in the pond because they had dredged it out, put in a clay layer, and their dam had washed out, so I put in a spillway. And I put in some diving rocks.
Nice.
Yeah, and there were giant 20-foot crayfish in there, and so the whole thing had drained. And then I brought in a tiny house, and I'm just sort of, going to sit back just like an ant, rest on my laurels for a year, and just see how things play out.
What are these there, Priscilla?
That's a hugel bed, and those are timbers that I'm going to start burying under vegetation. Like that, That's going to be my compost. When I come from my tiny house, then, I'll see what happens. So I'm really just sort of like starting the reclamation process, but it's really great because my taxes are only like $200 a year.
Let me chug something.
Let's see. Yeah.
All right.
We'll just hydrate around and.
This is like a woodpecker feeding station.
More from up top, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no clay in the water.
Definitely a leak dam.
What are you going to do? Well, let's find out. You have no water.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Exactly.
Oh, wait, that's not going to make the spillway work. That's wasting the water.
But this looks good. What did you see?
What did I see?
Yeah.
That,
Did it all work exactly as you planned, or?
There's a lot of vegetation that has come down that I didn't really think about.
Uh-huh.
That I probably should have had a secondary pond to slow down the energy of the water.
So yeah, a couple of things that I think this helps demonstrate to me. Actually, really nice job on the spillway. You can see there's really only one part where it started to weaken, which is this bottom rock. And so going back to, even in these areas, anywhere where you start getting to a steeper area, you want to go from the bottom up. So if this rock had been keyed in well, this would have all been perfect. And you can see this all held really well. This started moving, and you can see is pretty loose now, and the water is going over it. So let's just simulate that disappears, and now it's gonna one by one start pulling away. But this is really well laid out. This actually brings up a really good point that Tim and I were just talking about as far as spillway maintenance. Spillways are something you do need to maintain every so often. Organic matter builds up, plants start establishing here. Before you know it, this slowly builds up and up and up. It's getting stronger, which is great, but if it eventually raises to the level where your water is flowing somewhere else, that's a big problem. So, every once in a while you want to come through and kind of dig out the plants, some of them, dig out the organic matter, make sure these channels are still flowing well, but really nice job laying that out. So this pond does leak, which you can see by the areas like this where it's swirling. That's because water is going down into the earth there. There was another one here earlier, but it looks like that plugged up. This batter, the inside of a dam, the inside of a dam and anything against the water really needs to be 2 to 1 or shallower. I don't know if you have other rules of thought for that, but basically anything that's deeper than that, if you do a 1 to 1, it's going to move to a 2 to 1. Under the water, under the pressure, the sediment can't stay firm. It's going to slide to that. So you want to make sure that you're never going steeper than 2 to 1. In some soil types, you really need 3 to 1 as that inner batter of the dam. So that's something, it also applies to the uphill sides or anywhere that you don't have really stony material. Yeah, those were the main things I saw. Anything you want to add?
No. That was it. Oh, when I saw those sticks, I immediately thought if you've got, if you've got stream flows or whatever, just dams build themselves to like sticks all jumbling up and then suddenly water's backing up.
Yep. Okay, who's our spokesperson for this group? Let's hear it.
Okay, so
We have a small village over here where the red plants are growing, and they've been there for a while, and they had this landscape that was a wetland in this area and had dried up. It has, when we came in, there were signs of like hydric soils and surficial algae, and it was kind of dried up. So we knew that this was a good spot. So this village hired Zack to come and put these earthworks above it to create some more water and less wetland but more pond. So we built this one first, and we created a dam, and that's our spillway for excess water, and then we built the dam above it, or this sediment trap above it, and I'm missing something. We put a lot of rocks within our ponds for texture and fish and habitat. We didn't get our riparian vegetation planted, but these are, oh, here's one, the willow. And we have overland. This would be an overflow right here for the sediment trap. And sediment is going to be trapped in the sheet flow spreader down to the main pond as well. Then that overflow is going down over that sheet flow spreader spillway.
Now it's really tiny. You're a cat meowing down there.
Now it's two-dimensional.
So what did you guys notice so far?
Overland.
Overland. Watch out.
Well, right there.
Yep.
Reinforcement.
Where? Which one? Which
This
one?
one going
Yeah.
this way.
Yep. Exactly. Yep, so it worked really well when there was a little bit of water, but you can see how getting those spillways really wide and shallow is
No, he poured it on
key.
the dam.
Poured it on the dam.
So the other thing I've noticed, we forewent the level,
It is gonna rain.
and I'm wondering about our equality with this spillway, with that.
this upper area.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is our degree of rise there?
Uh-huh.
See if this doesn't just back up into our spillway instead
Yep.
of going down this way.
Yep. We will find out shortly.
Not a lot of texture right there, because even though there was a lot of even though there was a lot of overland flow, it's almost dry now.
It's a rock structure.
A couple of things I noticed that I would interject. You notice the one thing over there, and really you can see how, if you're already so close, you get some organic matter in your spillway, you get some plants, and before you know it, your spillway is in your spillway. And so it's surprisingly easy to do, is make a spillway that's not actually the low point, where the water actually leaves in a direction that you didn't anticipate. And so that's a really important thing. That's why these spillways are so critical, is you want to make sure water's flowing where you actually intend it to. And so way overbuild it. Make the middle of the spillway way deeper than you think. Make it way wider than you think. Make it with shallow sides. Make your freeboard higher than you think, because then you're accommodating for a lot of the different issues that can happen. The other thing I would have done, you have a pretty big watershed coming down here, so I would have done some kind of sediment trap in here. You can see, this one's going to function as a very nice sediment trap for this area, but then once it comes in here, you're getting all of this fine sediment washing out in here. If we were able to look under the water, you'd see a lot of sediment washed out in there. And so either making a deliberate point to catch it and harvest it with some access at the top of this pond, or here you could actually have a nice system where you could have a small sediment trap pond here. This pond flows to this pond, this catches all the sediment here, and then it overflows around into this one. Really nice job with your spillways as well. Another point of concern that I would have long term is this area right here. Yeah, you can see you're starting to get some erosion, you're starting to get some creep into the dam, and so that in general, you want that a really nice shallow low angle, and to keep your water flowing in the middle of the spillway. You can see it's kind of trending this way, and over time it's going to start creeping until it starts to cause some erosion on that.
So you slope that this way or back?
Yep,
into
this should be sloped, well, both ways, actually, always. Like this, you know, this again
Be a 1 to
is
1 or
too
1 to
steep.
2
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
pond,
yeah. Yeah, you've got a 1 to 2 the wrong direction here.
Okay.
You know, it's like that, it should be more like that. And then coming down softer here as well. But yeah, really nice job, guys. Anything else to interject?
Would you armor, like put more rock up the slope here? Like it was right
Yes.
flowing over the top. It would start cutting that bank
Yep.
pretty quick there. So then it would go right around all that.
Yeah, yep. And so armoring, but if anything, you know, I'm much more okay with it cutting there than there.
Yeah.
If it cuts there, that's undisturbed grade. Yeah, you don't want that happening. But here, if it's cutting here, that's where you get into really big issues. So, you know, having those spillways really wide, flat bottom, really soft, gentle slides, and big rocks armoring the sides of it as well.
So we were very excited about coming to this part of Montana and trying to undo some of the damage that had been done, but what we didn't really bank on was that this used to be historically a buffalo migratory route.
Get to the action.
The most successful piece of the entire landscape.
The spillways are working well despite the horrific Noah's Ark flooding event.
You could pull the bridge if you want to see the original spillway height compared to the dam. But
You know, we were talking earlier about increasing catchment. So right here is a perfect place for a diversion swale or terrace to basically, if you wanted that water to enter the pond in order to do that.
I thought the features of this one worked well.
They did. Yeah. They worked very well. They held up very well. Nothing really blew. The spillways worked well. And this one, I think, articulates something really well. This one is on the least disturbed ground, and it was also the least disturbance, and you can see by far there was the least moving sediment as well. So that's something really important to consider when you're doing earthworks. You're cleaving open a big area. If you can get it established before big rains, great. If not, you got to be ready to handle that erosion, handle that sediment. And so minimizing your impact like they did here is one of the really good ways to do that. So, you know, you saw almost very little sediment travel compared to all the other projects, and that is really attributed to the vegetation and then how they were able to do small disturbances to move around the water, but not big grandiose things that are also loosening up a lot of sediment. Okay, who's our spokesperson here?
I guess that's me.
Nice. Let's hear it.
So we didn't make up a very creative backstory. We were just trying to make a successful flow of water here and not destroy anything. I guess there are places that you could habitate. You know, there's
We do have a rock for a house.
right. So we have some high points here, and all of this seems relatively safe as well. We did do a clay dam. We dug down until we hit, you know, at least got past the the ugliest of it, no organic matter, and it smeared well and everything. We did truck in clay from off-site, but we have heavy equipment, so no big deal. Little diesel, no problem. We tried to keep our spillway away from the dam. We mostly just took advantage of the natural landform here. We didn't do a whole lot of dirt work other than trucking in that material that we didn't seem to have on site. So we picked a narrow spot that gives us a large potential hold here. Most of this upper area we thought would be shallow, sort of wetlands area out here, and tried to line out the spillway to not let too much sediment go out and around. Beyond that, we didn't, that's sort of where we stopped working, right at the end of that spillway. But yeah, we were looking at, what is the smallest area that we could work on to get the biggest result.
Nice. Let's see what happens.
Worked 4 consulting sessions with Zack.
Well, and that's one of the beautiful things about these types of dams is if you get water infiltrated into these parts of the landscape, you actually want that. And so a lot of times they take a really long time to fill up, maybe several years. Maybe they fill up and then it just quickly dissipates into the landscape. They have to fill up a couple of times to do that. But then once you get it charged, it's slowly feeding and feeding and feeding over time.
It's filling up that long ago dried up aquifer.
Exactly. And recharging the deep historical aquifers that we're so rapidly depleting. Yeah, this looks pretty good. You know, it depends on the material that's here. Personally, I would smooth this out. This is a little steep, but in general, you guys actually have really good embankments, really close to what you'd want. You had a slightly flatter one on the inside of the dam and a slightly steeper one on the outside. You know, you're about 2 to 1 here, maybe a little bit steeper, and you're probably a little bit shallower on the inside. I don't know if you guys knew to do that, but that was a really nice job with that.
Just how the materials felt.
Yeah.
You know, we just pushed it until it felt stable.
And so here, you know, I would round this off and put this at a little bit lower angle, but all of this is really nice. That connection's looking good. And what I really like about this one is the location of the spillway. You guys identified a spot where you could have the spillway come around nowhere close to the dam. And so, you know, with the freeboard that you guys have here, the amount of water retention, look at how much area that's going to have to flood and fill this spillway before coming over there. So this is a really nice, resilient design. Another thing to note is, you know, similar to that other one, we could pour a lot of water all in this area and you're not going to get a lot of sediment because this is all vegetated. For the most part, it's holding on to. As you can see, similar to them, you guys even more so really minimized your earthwork to just this little piece where you really have almost no sediment flow because of how you did it, and you know, because you left all of this undisturbed, you're really minimizing your amount of sediment going into it. I would still create an area, you know, where your main gully is down. You could create a little pocket in this area that's a sediment trap, either a little deeper pool or some rocks along here, and kind of naturally, you know, the sediment's going to spill out into this area. But the tricky part is access. You know, you want to ideally, I like to be able to dig out a sediment trap with a normal excavator, not with a pond dredging excavator, because they're a lot cheaper. And so if you can concentrate that close to potentially a road along the edge of the pond, that really helps facilitate that. You guys have a really nice wide flat spillway here. It gets a little bit choked and narrow, and particularly in these areas where the banks are steeper, one of the things I'd be worried about is over time that goes to that, and then, you know, this starts getting narrower and narrower, backing up here. So just keeping in mind, you really want to keep your spillways flat and wide, and ideally with banks that are lower angle, and definitely vegetating and mulching these banks as much as possible, because erosion on the banks of the spillway can really leave you with a bad time.
Right.
But very nice work.
Thank you. Get to read and go.
Okay guys, we're gonna start with the next one here. The floor is yours, go for it.
All right, so we had a debate on scale. This was going to be original, the silt catching, and this is going to be the pond, and this is going to be the town. And we were using this sort of valley as the contour. That scale was just too big, and we got one of the instructors over and said, look, if we just demonstrate a single water feature, that's kind of the point of the exercise. So we asked if we could completely ignore the level and contour and the context in which this little water feature fit. So we were also told that we could designate a water entry point for a flow of water.
Yep.
And so that's this grassland. We left this grassy to help catch and filter. And this is the silt pond. That is the main body of water, and that's the overflow. Then this was a natural bend and spillway, and this was an erosion point. So we were trying to illustrate, and we filtered this out. We dug this out, took the clay out, and packed it layer by layer by layer by layer and rebuilt this dam and went around that erosion point. So, but the property is basically right at that valley and right at that ridge and right here. So we just went for it.
Nice.
You got a houseboat.
And we poured a huge amount of water through it, so it should be all right.
Let's see.
It was the only stuff for this guy. No, that's really good.
Well, that brings up my chief enhancement of this would be that, you know, that spillway with the really steep sides like that is going to eventually be issue. You know, 1-to-1 is the steepest you can deal with without water flow. If you have water flow, you need to go even shallower than that. And there, you know, those 90-degree cuts, eventually what would happen in this landscape is you're gonna get, yeah, exactly. And now you're gonna have the unintended consequence of the water going out that way.
Oh, that's really nice.
I think the first place for it to cut out is the 90-degree right
Yep,
there.
exactly.
You got all that hydraulic power going, undercutting right there.
Yep.
You see that?
One thing, you know, a fairly major thing that I would maybe think about as far as the renovation of this, you know, because this spillway is a really steep, slanted area, just like Fred was saying, I would even look at having this first pond as the sediment trap, then flowing into this one, but then actually back flooding out this direction and around through here. You're going to have a much easier time making a wide, shallow spillway in an area that's already sloping down versus, you know, if you had it, you could even have it where it actually back floods through this pond and through here. So these ponds would be at the same level. You'd have this one as your sediment trap. Then once this one's all the way full, it starts back flooding out this direction, comes away from the ponds and down, because you're going to have a much easier time achieving a nice spillway shape in this side versus that side because you're working uphill. And so if you imagine this at scale, you know, that kind of spillway would be a huge undertaking if this is a pretty nice big pond.
Yeah, so we were really thinking the water would come up just about where it is up there, and just kind of get started. We have pretty good, you know, sunlight waking us up from south. We got some west tree cover over here to keep it cool in the evening. We have some farm vehicles going along the way, and we kind of have two ways out, you know, and we can just get right to it. We can hop in our vehicle here. We'll walk out here. We have a little hugel bed, and we got some growies all around, but we can walk down or drive down to the pond if we'd like. Or, you know, we could drive out this way, and this is kind of where the fun happens. We drive down and around, and we got some bank stabilization with some good trees, and they come around, and we were really thinking, you know, we're going to grow some greens and things all along this this little terrace here. We got some 20-foot trees, maybe like mulberries or something, for bank stabilization on that side, keeping in mind that the sun's setting over there and this was really south. We're going to drive all the way around, and then we get into the larger trees down on that side, and kind of the intention of that was to shade out maybe this wetter flat space down here so that we can maintain some moisture on the property. And then we also shoot up above and have some agriculture going on up there. Then we have, you know, we were thinking this would kind of be our catchment. Maybe just take the bulldozer right through there and push it out, and maybe even push it right up the trails to put some of that nutrient back into our system. Yeah, and then we have our pond. Down here we have a little sunning board. Then we got a dam. Here's our, what is this called? Our monk vent. I think that's what that's called. And yes, we kind of accentuate it a little bit. And that kind of is supposed to go out this way, you know, but our pipe it's on its way. So we didn't, that doesn't really work at the moment, but it's there. And here's our spillway over here. We have a little bridge and off into Never Never Land. So yeah, we're pretty happy with this.
A fair bit of erosion.
These aren't too prevalent.
That's where you wish you'd been feeding them just that little bit of important
Animals for flotation.
So a couple of things that I noticed, a couple of key points where water was being directed, where there wasn't any armored foraging, and so this is eventually going to eat away, cause problems with your roads, and cause sediment flowing into here, despite your nice sediment trap. You can see the same for these terraces. You know, there's a lot of sediment washing through there. You know, the straight lines aren't helping. Another thing that I would actually look at doing with a setup like this, I like how you guys laid it out, except for the straight lines. Straight's, you know, not a natural thing, but I would actually look at having these terraces flow back this way into that valley and then back down, so that you're keeping the water moving back and forth more. Another thing, this sediment trap did a really good job with the big stuff, but you can see a lot of the little stuff made it through, a lot of the silt and clay, and so making this really more of a basin and pond. The stones are a really great job, but stones by themselves are, you know, they have too big a particle size in between, so they let a lot of the silt and sediment go through. Now this also would fix itself over time, where you're going to get that bigger stuff and then you're going to get sediment trapping into that, and so it's going to, if you lay those stones there, it is going to make a basin over time, but by that time you're already going to have had a good bit of sediment washing out into your pond. Another thing that this site articulates really well is anytime that you're doing earthworks, you can't just throw soil on organic matter, because what's going to happen is that organic matter is going to break down, it's going to create this kind of slimy layer, you're going to get stuff moving on top of it. And so here you can see, you know, with this area where, and you guys didn't know this, so no fault to you, but it's a really good example. You can see all of the soil that was put on top of the vegetation was one of the first things to move downhill with water. So that's a good point to be demonstrated with this one. So is that was our last one, right?
Yep.
Well, nice job, everyone. I'm impressed. Give yourself a round of applause. I really loved all of them. I hate picking favorites, but the big dam over there, I'm going to declare the winners.
Which one's over there?
That one that he was the talker for.
Snake Farm.
Yeah.
If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at permies.com, where we talk about ponds, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
More grand than the canyon, my river of mercy.